Hello and welcome to Wingin It. And so here we are. It is our last game of the second stage of this World Cup. And the position for us is simple. We have to win if we're going to have any chance of going through. But even a win doesn't guarantee it. It is out of our hands. There are other games still to be played that are going to impact our qualification. So yeah, we're 4-4 after 8 games. We dearly love to finish on 5-4. Give ourselves a chance of getting through. But in order to do that, of course, we have got to win this game here. So I should say this is a post-commentated game, so I do know, of course, how this game played out. But hopefully, yeah, just by watching this back and sort of trying to give a bit of insight into how I was feeling and how I was thinking going through the decision-making in this game, yeah, that can hopefully give you some insight into how this game went. So we're going first, which always is helpful in a game of Wingspan. So yeah, let's jump into this game and we'll see what we have in our crucial starting hand here. And okay, there we go. We have got what looks like the start of a very, very nice wetlands engine. So always relieving to see those two birds, ring-billed gull and chiff-chaff, and we've also got citizen scientists. So this is a very quick pick for me, I've got to say. Seeing those two, I think, as I say, you can get those down in the wetlands. You've basically got a 3-point engine already because you're drawing 2 cards. You get a tuck and a draw on the gull, so you've still got 2 more cards. You tuck those on the chiff-chaff. There's your 3 points. And yeah, citizen scientist, ordinarily a terrible bonus card, but pairs pretty well here with this start. So I'm just trying to work things out, trying to work out with the feeder. Not looking too great. But of course I've got the food. I can keep the food for these 2 birds and get those down. So I'm sort of trying to think to myself, okay, is there anything in the tray? Maybe that honey buzzard to get a bit of food going forward? Or am I just going to get these 2 down and start drawing some cards? That to me feels like the more sensible play. Just do that digging and yeah, if you're not finding good stuff, you're at least tucking it and scoring 3 points a turn. But hopefully I can get something to add to this. And yeah, really get more tucking birds. Try and get some more points because I think this is going to be the key in this game. And so we jump forward here to our first turn. My opponent going for a similar keep to me. A couple of birds and 3 food. But yeah, we are going to go ahead and get our chiff-chaff down. So as I said, I think it should be quite straightforward early on here. I think it's going to be chiff-chaff, eggs, gull. And then we'll start doing our digging. And yeah, we're really just going to have to wait and see what our opponent is going to do. They do go for food early on, so when you see the berry and double seed, you start to think wood duck, and your heart sinks. So wasn't feeling too good in that moment, but yeah, as I say, for me, it's straightforward. Get these eggs down, and it is not a wood duck. It is a red-winged blackbird. So yeah, opponent going for the wetlands as well. It seems. Of course, I'm feeling good here because I've already got these 2 birds, get them down super quickly. My opponent, on the other hand, laying eggs, so maybe they're going to do some digging. We're going to do our digging and immediately find a violet green swallow. So yeah, that's the kind of bird I'm looking for. Of course, more tucking birds that are going to just really build out this wetlands, score more points with those brown powers. But really, I think the key with the chiff-chaff is just to build it out with birds as quickly as possible. Because the more birds in your wetlands, the more cards you're drawing, and therefore tucking. And it looks like tucking is going to be what my opponent's doing here as well. So we've got dueling full tucks at the moment, gull and chiff-chaff versus coot and blackbird. So it's super interesting start. Both players going for very, very similar looking strategy. So as I say, we just keep doing the digging. And we get some interesting draws here. So if I am going to be obviously building out this wetlands, I'm going to need some food from somewhere. And kind of what I'm thinking, looking at this feeder is, okay, maybe I can grab a rodent, get this shouldered hawk down. Of course, maybe that hits citizen scientists as well. Does perhaps help for some of these end of round goals, as does the chipping sparrow. So, there's an option there maybe to get that down in the forest as well. Get some eggs. I think traditionally with this kind of chiff-chaff engine, you are going to struggle in the end of round goals. And so yeah, if you put yourself in a position where you're not even qualifying for a lot of them, and your opponent can just get a clean sweep, it's very hard to fight back against that. You need a lot of points, a lot of tuck cards in this case. So yeah, it just gives me another option. And yeah, I mean, my opponent, they're going to need some food as well at some point. So they likewise don't have any sort of food access. They will need to get something sorted out there. And I'm thinking here, maybe we try and block this honey buzzard. They do have the food for it. At least the worm, I think they were keeping hold of, so it would be much easier to get down. But we do there pick up the tree swallow as well. So yeah, we're getting the tucking birds. We've got the engine ready. It's just the food that we are going to struggle with. So I'm just trying to think here, trying to work out in my mind, okay, which of these birds are possible to play, and which can I get rid of? Because, there's some advantage here to keeping some cards, giving more options. I think in the expected situation where I do build out this wetlands with these 2 extra tucking birds, I'm actually going to be not drawing enough cards to fully tuck every turn. So I'd only be drawing 3 cards, and Chiff Chaff lets me tuck up to 4. So in my mind, I'm kind of thinking here, okay, I can start to play it a little bit safer, maybe keep some extra options here. I'm knowing that they're all going to get tucked later anyway. It's unlikely that I'm going to be, in a position where I'm drawing so much that I can't tuck with the Chiff Chaff. So we do keep a few birds here, as I say, just kind of keep our options open. But I think at some point it is going to have to be maybe looking at getting this hawk down and getting a bit of food and just sort of, seeing if we can move this feeder around. Of course, we're going to need a lot of worms. That's kind of the downside of what I have been drawing. Both of these swallows that are going to get down in this wetlands. They need worms, and there are none. So, I do go ahead and grab my rodent here. So, as I say, plan is look to get the hawk down. Some of these extra cards as well that we've kept actually could help discarding in the forest, get a bit more food going, get the wetlands settled quicker. So, that's sort of partly what I'm thinking as well. Now, that changes a little bit here because this is where the hummingbird comes into play. So, my opponent kind of won the race for the food generator there. Hummingbird in their setup, very, very nice. But it's going to be very nice for me as well because, again, I need this food. I'm going to need it from somewhere. And if my opponent can give that to me and just help me get my engine set up that little bit quicker, I think that's going to help out. So just biding my time there, laying some eggs, knowing in the back of my mind, I'm going to need these eggs at some point anyway. If I'm going to be playing these birds in the wetlands, I'm going to need extra eggs. So actually just, as I say, bide the time, be a little bit patient. Wait and see if the feeder gets re-rolled. Maybe my opponent is going to keep giving me a bit of food for a few turns in a row. Maybe I don't even need to play this hawk. Maybe I don't even need to go and take some food. I can just force some of these birds down. But for now, we'll just kind of take whatever food we can get. As I say, it might have to involve a bit of forcing later. But that kind of does remain to be seen. Into round 2 here, and we are going to kick it off by getting a bit of free food here. We are getting some worms, so that definitely bodes well. As I said before, we are going to need plenty of worms to be getting these wetland birds down. So the more the merrier as far as I am concerned. So opponent, they're just doing their digging. As I say, they are in a strong position. They're going to be looking to see what they can build out here. But for me, I've got a few decisions to make here. I've got to try and work out my approach. So as I say, definitely looking at this hawk, there are a few reasons. Does help the citizen scientist potentially. Also, for this end of round, it could be crucial just having a bird that qualifies. At the moment, my opponent only has 1, so I'm assuming that at some point they're going to lay eggs on that coot. But at the very least, laying eggs there, it's going to help me get a couple of points and maybe a few more on the end of round. So, opponent there, their digging has paid off, so they've got another tucking bird, common grackle, which... I mean, I would have loved to have that, I'm not going to lie. I can't complain too much because, as I say, did find the tucking birds that I wanted early, but having an egg generator in there is game-changing. So that would have been nice. I definitely wouldn't have complained. But, it's gone to my opponent now, so I've just got to try and focus on getting my own stuff down, and that is what we're going to do here. So we go get food. On the reroll, we get another worm, which is lovely. Red-shouldered hawk misses though. That is not so lovely. So that is something that could potentially come back to bite us with this citizen scientist. So I'm definitely expecting to hit that lower bound, no problems. But you need 7 birds for that upper bound, and that is a challenge. So even a full wetlands, it's only 5 birds. You need 2 more. And if that hawk was potentially going to be one of them, it's not just the point missed. through not getting the tuck that we've got to concern ourselves with. So, bit of a shame, but at the very least, I can look at the positives and say, okay, we've got our worms, so we can get the violet green swallow down, and now with a bit more food, we can force the tree swallow down as well. And yeah, that definitely is what I'm focusing on here. If I can get these two down before I draw cards next, it just really elevates my engine. So at the moment, again, still a 3-point engine. Once these two go down, suddenly it becomes a 6-point engine. So we're getting 3 tuck and draws, and then of course 3 more tucks on that chiff chaff. So yeah, just by adding 2 birds, we're basically doubling the value of our engine. And that is a really, really strong position to be in. So yeah, violet green swallow does go down here. It's worth saying I was sort of half considering at this point pivoting into a forest engine. So with the hawk, with the chipping sparrow, and with the violet green swallow, could potentially have been a very strong setup. And I think maybe if I didn't have that tree swallow in my hand, I might have considered that. I might have considered going for what was the 3-point forest, maybe pick up that common swift to use up some of the extra food. But yeah, just my thinking here with the food I'm getting from the hummingbirds and just the potential for that 6-point engine, and maybe more if I can find another tucking bird through some digging. That was really appealing. Of course, trying to hit this citizen scientist for some extra points as well. So yeah, definitely a key decision point. You often find this, I think, in round 2, where you get a couple of different paths you can go down. You got to decide which one to go with. So I feel like this is the right way to go. But definitely, as I say, a case to be made to go for the forest, maybe go for something like that woodstock as well, and try and get some big point birds down. But yeah, for us, we're just going to keep picking up this free food. So I definitely don't mind it. As I say, it's going to be useful. We are going to want to play, I think, at least a couple more birds. I think one more we're going to want to try and get down in this wetlands, and then yeah, some kind of big point bird later on. Looking at that last end of round goal, food cost to played birds. That is quite a swingy end of round goal, and when I describe it as swingy, I mean you can easily play one bird and go from losing to winning, and that's worth 6 points in a 2-player game to go from losing to winning, because you gain 3 points and you take 3 points off your opponent. So always worth bearing that in mind. Always worth thinking about that kind of end of round goal, and making sure that yeah, you are in a position where if you can try and win it, then yeah, you should give yourself the option of going and doing that. But for now, we're not going to worry too much about that. We're just going to worry about running our engine. So it's basically set up for now. We've got our 4 birds down in the wetlands, trying to match our opponent's stride for stride. I definitely was feeling at this point of the game that I was behind. I mean, I'm looking at their board, the number of tucks, the number of eggs, and now Peregrine Falcon down as well as the final piece of their puzzle. It was looking very, very strong. So yeah, they were in a good position. Their tempo was really good just because of the egg-laying birds that they had got down in their wetlands. Not having to take turns out to go and lay eggs, which I have had to be doing, that has definitely slowed me down. But we go ahead and pick up a white stork, which very, very nice bird in most situations, but still nice here, I think, even with this wetland engine. So it's a big point bird. We look at that end of round goal again. 3 food cost definitely helps, and 8 points. But it's just another bird in the wetlands that gains a card. So while it's not a tucking power, it's not one of these tuck and draws, it is still going to generate points because, ordinarily we're only drawing 3 cards. This would give me a 4th, and I know it's going to get tucked under the chiff chaff. So yeah, something to think about. Fish in the feeder as well. So definitely would like to get my hands on that if possible. But yeah, we might just take a little bit of time. We're not going to be able to get this white stock down immediately, but it is definitely going to be something, I think, to aspire to going into round 3. And yeah, it's definitely going to be worth playing if possible, just for the points value, and then, as I say, the extra point each turn when running my engine. But yeah, a couple of turns left here. Got to start thinking about this end of round, as I said. Got to try and at least get something down, get a free food there, get our fish, which is very, very nice. But yeah, we do have the hawk. That is a platform nest. And I know at this point, again, I'm going to have to lay eggs if I want to play this white stock. So I may as well lay eggs now and get a double benefit from it through going for this end of round. So I think my opponent is going to win the end of round, but if we can qualify, then that's certainly going to help as well. But we don't need to lay eggs just yet. We can draw cards, and we're going to find a bush tit. So, yeah, as I said earlier, when the grapple came up for my opponent, I would have loved to have got a bird like that. And we do get bush tit. So that gives me some decisions to think about, because it's almost for me at this point where it's too late. You know, the benefit of having a bush tit or a grackle or a blackbird that's going to get you eggs is in that early game in this sort of full tuck. It's getting that tempo, saving your turns where you'd have to go and lay eggs, to not have to do that and just be able to draw cards and score points as well. Yeah, that's a big advantage. So bush tit versus white stalk is going to be a bit of a decision point again as we go here sort of into this round 3. But as I say, for now, we've got to lay eggs. We aren't going to win the center round, but those 2 extra points, very, very nice. And yeah, it's going to help potentially get either the white stalk or the bush tit down in this round 3. But until then, we've just got to keep drawing cards. So I'm going to try and play this patient. I know my opponent, in their position, they're going to want to use that hummingbird as much as possible. And the reason being is that they're generating 2 eggs every turn. And those eggs, you know, they're not going to stick around forever on those birds. Or at least you don't want them to, because you want to create space. You want to keep getting those extra points. And yeah, really the only way for them to clear out those spaces is to go and play more birds. So they'll want as much food as they can get. I don't see them skipping this hummingbird anytime soon. So if I just can be a little bit patient, keep scoring my 6 points a turn through running this wetlands engine and just wait and see. And yeah, they are going to reset this feeder. Unfortunately, they took the worm. My eyes lit up as soon as that worm got re-rolled. But yeah, that was snaffled up before I could really get a look in, unfortunately. But yeah, we're just going to take some random food. I mean, none of this is useful for any of the birds in my hand, unfortunately. But yeah, we are going to have a decision here, because now is the time when we could force down the bush tit. And it's going to be a decision of, do we do that, or do we wait maybe another turn or 2 and try and force down the white stalk? So yeah, as I said, bush tit really kind of nicer early on, maybe not so much now. So common raven pops up in the tray, normally a bird that you're going to go jump over. Probably not amazing for me in this situation. I think there is a temptation here to pivot away and do a raven stalk bush tit grasslands. But for me, as I say, I just think focusing on these tucking birds in the wetlands and running the engine that I've set up is going to be more important. But I do recognise here that my opponent, they're definitely going to want food. They've definitely got a lot of birds in their hand, and probably some big point, high food cost ones. So whilst I don't need this raven, and it's not something I'm going to be particularly interested in, I'm still going to pick it up. I'm still going to block it. It's probably going to get tucked at some point. I don't see myself playing it. Yeah, I think it does get tucked on this turn. But yeah, it's important to block that, because you know, rodent in the feeder as well, my opponent can easily pick it up, get it down, and yeah, not only do they get extra food if they're going to go into this grasslands, but it can help clear out some of those egg spaces on the grackle and the blackbird, and just improve their point scoring engine going forward. So always important to pay attention to that. But yeah, for me, as I say, in this position, just got to be patient, just got to wait, and make my mind up on bush tit versus white stalk. So I'm firmly set on the white stalk. It is 1 point per turn extra, which is the same as the bush tit. Of course, bush tit's a 2-point activation, but it takes away a card from the chiff chaff, so it is only 1 point a turn. Does potentially hit that next end of round goal, but then white stalk helps more for the final one. So anytime you've got a decision like this, there's always multiple factors, there's always different elements that you've got to weigh up and try and work out the pros and cons of each way. But yeah, as I say, if I can just get that one more food, that's all I need, one extra bit of food. And we can go and look and get this white stalk down. But yeah, I've also kept hold of this blue-winged warbler, so I think I might have picked that up a few turns earlier. Again, that's just with that last end of round goal in mind. And it's 8 points. So, you know, theoretically, you know, even with a white stalk down, having that 7-point engine, playing warbler is better. It's 8 points. So again, expecting, anticipating, more free food is going to be on its way. Blue-winged warbler could be a potential play down the line. But yeah, talking of free food being on its way, we get another one there. And it might potentially be white stalk time coming up very soon. We can force it. I think I would rather be doing that than just sitting around and waiting and hoping that another worm comes through, because you never know with this feeder. I feel like there's not been many worms popping up, and whenever they have been popping up, my opponent has been the one going and grabbing them. So yeah, it's one of those where, you know, you got to try and decide, is it better to spend the extra food now and get the extra points, or do I want to wait and gamble and see if this worm is going to come up and save me a bit of food. So in the end, as I say, do go ahead here and just play this white stalk. So that's the final piece of the puzzle, the final part of my engine. It is all done. So yeah, all things considered, a 7-point engine with 8 turns to go, I'm pretty happy with that. I think that's a pretty solid thing to just go and run, and it's not like your traditional grasslands engine where you might run out of egg space, or, you know, have some other reason why you can't just run that engine and keep going and scoring points throughout the rest of the game. I can just tuck all the cards I'm drawing. There's no limit on the number of tucks you can get per bird, so that definitely helps there. And yeah, Citizen Scientist is still sort of in the back of my mind here. Is, you know, a semi-factor, I would say, in this game. We are going to have 5 birds with tuck cards now with this white stalk, so still 2 more away from Citizen Scientist. So, you know, if I'm thinking about eagles, I'm thinking about Benelli's eagle, Eastern Imperial eagle, you know, potentially something like that. Even something like a red kite, you know, play that on top of the red-shouldered hawk. Get another bird with a tuck card there. So, yeah, lots of options. But for me, don't need to worry too much about those, because I'm just going to go ahead and dig and see what I can find. So white stalk is going to help a little bit with that as well, refreshing this tray. And we get a couple of birds that can get tucks on them in the collar dove and the starling, which again could be factors here. Just having a little check of that Citizen Scientist. But if more free food is coming, it's guaranteed points. So I think those are going to be ones that I do look to keep. We deny the sparrow there. That's not for me. That is a block on my opponent. These kind of double birds are great just for clearing out egg space, but also looking at the centre round, it's another ground nest space. So yeah, I want to block that. I don't want my opponent pulling a fast one here and surprising me with an end of round goal win, because I've got 2. I've got this chiff chaff and the gull. At the moment, my opponent doesn't have any, so they could very easily snatch it with a couple of plays in the grasslands. Particularly a double play like that can be a great way of getting yourself on the board. So yeah, it's just, again, little things like that, just having your head up, paying attention to the tray, not necessarily thinking about just what's good for you, but what's good for your opponent. And they do play burrowing owl there, so again, if they maybe got their hands on a double bird, you double play into that and you tie the end of round goal. So that definitely can be a factor there. But for me, we just keep drawing cards. As I say, pretty straightforward. Most of these cards are going to be terrible, but I don't really care. They're all going to get tucked. We deny the gold crest again. A little bit late, but potentially could be a great play for my opponent. Clear out some eggs, use some of those extra cards they've got. So again, just try and block the good stuff while it's there. And really, yeah, make sure that your opponent can't go and benefit off that. So yeah, all the tucks coming through. We've got one more turn in this round, and it is going to be laying eggs, I think, here. So yeah, my opponent got that star nest bird down, so they are going to hit this end of round goal. But I can't let them win that. It's not worth it for me to let them get all those points. While laying eggs is only 2 for me, to win this end of round goal, I gain 6 and I take 3 off my opponent. So it's effectively an 11-point turn just for laying 2 eggs, which is kind of wild when you think about it like that. But again, it's little things like paying attention to the end of round goals, doing your calculations properly, knowing what the difference is between qualifying or missing completely or potentially winning it. Got to work that out to yeah, help you pick the best option here, because some of these later game decisions can be a little bit tricky. So yeah, I think my opponent at this point was definitely, you know, doing these mental calculations again themselves. They're kind of looking at me and thinking, are they going to be laying eggs this next turn? Are they going to win this end of round goal? Should I lay eggs now? Should I, you know, try and play something else? They do have a couple more food there, so yeah, all these kind of decisions, as I say, they're tricky, but they do sometimes help make the difference. And this feels like it could be a pretty close game. So, kind of my thinking as this game was being played was that I was massively behind after rounds 1 and 2, because so much of that was just trying to get one food at a time, or slowly setting things up, only laying eggs for 2 points, whereas my opponent was just very smoothly running their engine, get the hummingbird down, get another tucking bird down. It all felt very solid. So yeah, this definitely does feel like a game where it might be close because I'm dragging it back just through the strong point scoring of my engine. So they do eventually go and play a bird, so it's another bird in the grasslands, but not a ground nest. So I feel pretty safe here. I know I can win the centre round goal, and yeah, already 70 points, and we're going to get 6 from the centre round goal. So as I say, it is strong. These are going to be some big scores because I know my opponent likewise is looking strong on the scoring front. And it's very close on that last centre round goal, 11 apiece. So yeah, as I said, it's very swingy, this final end of round goal. We have the advantage here in going second. So yeah, always much better to be in that second position. You can wait and see and react. See what my opponent plays, especially coming to that last turn or the last couple of turns. You can see what the position is, especially in this situation for me where, 9 times out of 10, my best turn is going to be drawing cards and scoring those 7 points. I'm going to have to think sometimes, is it worth playing a bird like this collared dove, like this blue-winged warbler, like something else maybe that I draw that might not be as many points on the surface, but gets me those extra end of round goal points. So yeah, always something to bear in mind. A little bit more free food coming through here, so a berry, which does come in handy perhaps. I'm still thinking maybe collar dove, maybe starling, if those are going to help for this citizen scientist. I'm 100% cursing my red-shouldered hawk for missing earlier, because again, if that hit and I just play one of these 2 teal tucking birds, that's citizen scientist maxed out. So yeah, definitely frustrating, but I'm not going to worry too much about it. I'm just going to go ahead and draw cards, and what a relief. Benelli's Eagle popping up right when you want it to. So yeah, again, not normally a great bird when you're running Chiff Chaff, because I don't have spare cards to tuck behind the Benelli, but 100% worth the play here. So we're going to keep hold of that. And again, good for citizen scientist, because it does count as a bird with tuck cards, and amazing for this last end of round goal. 3 food cost in that bird, and I don't even have to pay the food for it. So that's always a nice relief. And yeah, relief is definitely the word to see that Benelli come up at this stage of the game when you've been digging so much. The white stalk definitely helps there, just resetting that tray. You see extra cards, so you're more likely to go and find stuff like this Benelli. And for my opponent, they fire right back. Before I even get my Benelli down, they played the Eastern Imperial Eagle. So again, this game has been very mirrored. I think very similar setups at the start, getting the tucking birds down. And it felt fair. I think sometimes I've definitely experienced this. I've seen other players comment about this. When one of the Eagles comes up, it can feel like sometimes it decides the game. So when both players get 1 each, I think that's a fair fight. I think you've yeah, evened things out a little bit there by both being able to get 1. But yeah, we're just going to keep drawing cards for now. It is definitely going to get towards crunch time here, because we're going to have some very intense calculations to do. Just between the end of round goal, between the bonus card, between, how many birds can we play realistically with only 2 eggs down? Maybe some of these double birds, tough to titmouse coming into play, gives an option to double play in the forest. So yeah, so much going on. Got to make sure you tuck the right number of cards, of course. When you're going to play Benelli, you've got to keep some back, but you don't want to keep so many back. When you've got Gorsehawk as well, potentially need to keep even more cards. So yeah, I've got to say this is definitely good to see, but definitely made the situation more difficult. Just a plethora of options, I think, going into this late game does make things tricky. So there are going to be some slow turns here. I'll probably try and skip through some of them, but definitely try and give as much insight as I can into what's going through my mind, what sort of calculations I'm doing, and what sort of decisions I'm trying to make. So yeah, I'm definitely weighing up Hobby versus Goshawk, as I was talking about earlier. Maybe Hobby on top of the red-shouldered hawk. That's another bird with a tuck card. And I don't need to keep birds back to feed the Goshawk. I can tuck those under the Chiff Chaff. So just trying to weigh those 2 up. I think Goshawk is the stronger point play. And there definitely are going to be some other cards here, like this California Quail. And even, to be honest, I think that blue-winged warbler, I think that's probably a bit too aspirational at this point. Unlikely that I'm necessarily going to get the food for that. And yeah, between the collar dove and the starling, I'm probably not going to play both. You know, if I am going to play either one, it is just going to be one of them. So yeah, there's definitely plenty in this hand. Again, the Baltimore Oriole might be a little bit too aspirational a play. There's plenty in this hand that can get tucked. But yeah, with so few turns left, and if I'm thinking, you know, 3 turns after this, maybe 2 of them are going to be playing birds. So I've only got 1 more turn drawing. I need to make sure I'm not left with cards left over. I want to make sure I'm tucking the right number and really, yeah, just maximizing the points, because I think at this point of the game and in this kind of game, every single point counts. I do not want to be making those little mistakes that can creep in, where you just switch off and you just, you know, miss a tuck somewhere, miss a point off, and then you lose by 1. Those can be very, very painful situations. But we do eventually decide in the end that we are just going to go ahead and tuck those 3 cards. And yeah, as I say, we've got some big decisions coming up. But Benelli, Goshawk, these teal food discarders as well. How are we going to negotiate this endgame? And coming ahead here to our next turn, we have a bit of a decision to make here. As I said, 3 turns left. I'm probably going to want to spend 2 of these on playing birds. And I've got to work out which birds to play, which order to play them in. And when am I going to draw cards? That is the key thing, because I think that determines everything. Once I've drawn cards, that is it. I've got to commit, especially if I'm going to be playing Goshawk as well as Benelli. I've got to keep the right number of cards back. I've got to make sure I've got the right number of food, maybe for some of the double plays as well. So yeah, there was a lot of thinking going on this turn. I've cut most of that out here. Not going to make you sit through me flicking back and forth between cards, but we do commit and we do go ahead and draw cards. And yeah, it's not really too important what we find here, I don't think. I think we've got some good options. It's unlikely I'm going to find something better than what I've already got. But famous last words, because Eastern Bluebird pops up and makes the decision even more complicated, because not only now have we got 1 double play option, we have 2, and they're worth different number of points, maybe losing different number of eggs. They count different number of food costs for this end of round. So yeah, this is getting even more complicated, and this is where the intense counting begins, because yeah, there's multiple options here. Benelli is a must play. Do I double play in the grasslands? Do I double play in the forest? Does the Goshawk go down in the forest maybe? Do I still go for one of these teal birds? I've got to try and work out, you know, how much more food am I going to get realistically? Is my opponent going to keep using the hummingbird? Or with 2 turns left, are they just going to play a couple of birds, or maybe play a bird and lay eggs? You know, there's this anticipation element of as well. There's a sort of trying to work out what your opponent is going to do, try and work out the best strategy around that. So again, as I say, so much of this turn in particular is about working out how many cards to tuck, because I want to end this game with no cards in hand, because every card that I keep is a lost point. I could have got a tuck on a Chef. So yeah, I've got to look through, I've got to count. Okay, Goshawk needs a couple of birds, Benelli needs 3. Make sure you keep the right number and make sure you keep the double birds. So there is going to be a bit of thinking. I'll skip through that until we get to the point where we start tucking. All right, and here we go. We have finally made our decision on not only how many to tuck, but also what to tuck. So it is just going to be the 2 cards being tucked here, and that is because we are going to go ahead and go for this Goshawk play. So yeah, I think when I was just working this through, when I was trying to count it, of course, for me, the big decision was between Goshawk and collared dove. Goshawk and collared dove both hit the end of round in the same way. They both count 2, but they cost different kinds of food. Goshawk, of course, needs extra cards. Collared dove, you maybe get some teal tucks as well at the end of the game, depending on a bit more food left over. So yeah, that was the big decision, but it's been made, and we come here into our last 2 turns. An opponent, as I said, probably going to be playing bird and laying eggs, so not anticipating much more free food. I'm 5 behind in this end of round, but yeah, definitely kind of looking and thinking I can catch them and overtake them with some combination of these birds that are going to be played here in this game. So yeah, so a few double play options. Only can do one of them though. Only got 2 eggs, so we can do a double play in the forest or in the grasslands, but we can't do both. So yeah, we're first going to go here and do the play in the forest with the goshawk. We're going to use up 2 of these cards and then save the Benelli for last turn. I do try to make a habit out of that. If I have got Benelli, I like to be cruel and keep it as long as possible. I will say, I think my opponent will have seen it coming. Whenever you're running Chiff Chaff and you look and see how many cards they've got in hand, you know something's up. You know that probably a Benelli isn't coming. So yeah, probably wouldn't have been too surprising for them there. But yeah, coming through here. On to the last turn. My opponent did actually draw cards, so that must have been a better play for them than laying the eggs. But we are going to do our best play here. Play this double play into Benelli for huge points, and we do max out the Citizen Scientist, and we do win that last end of round just by those couple of foods. So the double bird definitely came in handy here. And we go into the scores, and I cannot tell you how tense of a score count up this is. It is very, very close through the birds. My opponent's slightly edging it on the bonus card, and I think the end of rounds is also close. Eggs is where they pull a bit of a lead. Food on cards, neither of us have any, and so it comes through to the tucks. So we're behind. We have a bit of a mountain to climb here on these tuck cards, and we do indeed climb that mountain. 122 to 119. And oh boy, I probably breathed out the longest sigh of relief of my life after this game, because man, it was so intense just all through that game. But that end game, I think that might have been one of the most complicated end games I've ever had to try and negotiate, just through all those different options. Keep some cards, tuck some cards, how much food have you got, look at the end of round. There was so much going on, and as I said, these kind of close games, you cannot afford to make a little mistake at the end of the game. You know, lose 3 or 4 points here and I lose the game and I'm completely out of the World Cup. So my status, my chances of getting through were very much riding on how I could negotiate that end game. And I'm not convinced I played it perfectly. I'm sure there was maybe 1 or 2 points I could have squeezed out from there some point down the line. But Wingspan is hard to play perfectly, so you can only do what you can do, play it as best as you can, and try and score the highest score you can. And yeah, 122, like I say, it's a strong score, but 119 for my opponent to be on the losing side is definitely a bit crushing. So we'll take a look at their board one last time, and we'll take a look at their bonus card, a very nice 10-point Rodentologist. Fair play to them for doing well on that. But yeah, Citizen Scientist, not often the star of the show. 6 points. You know, if I had a blank bonus card, that's a loss there. So those 6 points were just as critical as every other point I gained in that game. But so there we go. The game is over. And fortunately for us, that is the only thing that is over. Our World Cup journey is carrying on. We are going through. So we did have one other game in this group that was still to be played after this one. So after this game finished, I still had no idea whether I was going through or not. But now that final game is done and we squeeze through on a head-to-head tiebreaker. So I will take it. It's not been the most glamorous of second round stages, but all you can do in these kind of group stages is put yourself in a position to get through. And that's what we have done. So there will be more videos, hopefully many more, but we'll go through into the knockout. So we're going to have a best of 3 matchup coming very, very soon. If you want to see that, please hit that subscribe button. Please stick around and stay tuned, and I will see you for that game very, very soon.